Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am.
Hello, my name is Mildred Martinez. I'm a community activist and a housing specialist. I am here today to interview Rodney Skinner regarding our issues surrounding our nation's criminal justice reform and prison reform. It seems to be some confusion on the two, and no one has an actual plan or how we as a nation can address the changes. If you know someone in prison, listen to this interview. If you have been in prison, listen to this interview. If you want to see changes in our prison system, listen to this interview. Mr. Skinner, can you tell me what is the difference between criminal justice reform and prison reform?
The difference between criminal justice reform and prison reform. Criminal justice reform consists of the flaws that's in the criminal justice system, wrongful convictions, people using the system politically to wrongfully prosecute people. Now, the issues of that is that the changes that have to come within the criminal justice system on a much larger scale. The confusion or the understanding of prison reform is how do you reinvent a system this big? Well, basically part of it is massive reentry. We don't have massive reentry in this country. We don't really have an exit plan. This prison system was designed basically for punishment. It went into rehabilitation, became from penitentiaries to correctional facilities. Now, what we have today is a prison system that has become not cost effective to America, and a whole society of people that are not so much dysfunctional, but not properly prepared upon when they come out. As far as the criminal justice reform, we're going to continue to have wrongful convictions because we don't know when they're going to be discovered. They're going to come at any time, and it's going to keep happening. But what has to do is new legislation has to come into place to address that. But combining them sometimes is not one of the same, but they are interrelated. But to specialize the understanding of prison reform is an issue that has to implement change. And change has to come from the makeup of the facilities that we have, or the reconditioning factor. The transitional phase that we have within the American prison system is pretty much minute as far as from correctional facilities. It's not on a massive level that addresses a mass of people. So when people could differentiate what the difference is and have a clear understanding what it is, then we can have effective change within the system in itself and combining both. But you have to hit one to hit the other to make them both effective with change. That's one of the problems, and that is the difference. The difference is one is not the same as the other.
How do you feel about the President Trump signing the prison reform bill?
I think the signing of the prison reform bill is a big step towards change that hasn't been, but it's been talked about. It's been talked about for quite some time. Now, him signing that bill opens the door for people to introduce other things, other ideas, how to address the prison system and how people reintegrate into society.
Everybody in our country.
Has an effective plan been put into place? No, there hasn't been an effective plan put into place, but what happens now with him signing the prison reform bill, it enables an opportunity to institute change in a different way, a way that hasn't been done for decades within the prison system in America, the jail system in America. It's not structured where there's an effective exit plan. So by him signing that bill opens a door for people to implement ideas, to present them to the government, for the government to implement change or to fund change within that area.
How do you feel about the rapper Meek Mills becoming the face of prison reform?
Well, you know, I think that not just Meek Mills, but other rappers, when they come to an understanding that there are voices in the community, you know, as far as being a face, we need more than just one face to be the face of prison reform. There's many faces that should be on prison reform. As far as him being a face because he's been able to highlight, you know, the injustice that he endured is excellent. That someone has been targeted to be a representative to introduce change on another level where we didn't have that before, where somebody was profiled in a way. People took an interest in him. You know, he just happens also to be a friend of my son's. You know, and then, you know, it's good that someone of that caliber has been able to start introducing something, but his experiences will also limit him as to what he can do. So as an individual, he needs an army of people also to be in the same area or have the same attitude to start implementing change, not just verbally, but by presenting something that's going to induce that and show that, yo, this is what we want done, this is what we need done. And part of one of the problems is people where we come from, people of color, we haven't been a part of the rebuilding process of the prison system because that's not something that we do as a people to help build prisons or build jails, because most of the people that's in there are people of color. But people have to be a part of something that's different. So if he's been presented as a face, I think it's great. I think it's a good thing, you know, and I think it's a start in the right direction for people to start recognizing.
How do you feel about Million and the direction he is going for those changes on letting out 1 million people, and how can it be done?
Well, basically that comment didn't directly come from him. That comment came from Michael Rubin, you know, who's a billionaire basketball team owner of the 76ers. And part of that was something that was also introduced to Meek Mills, you know, as part of something that I was introducing, you know, which was a proposal was introduced to him by my son. So it was an understanding that he understands also that there's a plan that's in place. How they pursue it, that's on them. I'm going to pursue what I need to pursue because I created it. And that's something that we'll further elaborate on.
I think after hearing you speak, you are the face of the real reform and prison reform, and there are other people standing on this plan.
Yeah, there's quite a few people standing on the plan, but the plan needs to be introduced the way it is. Like, for example, you know, if you look up what we have illustrated, if we take what's pretty much already been done within rebuilding our prison system, if we create an exit plan, what I designed was 3 types of specialized reentry facilities. One is Brailport Correctional Facility, the other is Computer Repair and Asbestos Correctional Facility, and the other is Telecom Community Correctional Facility, excuse me. The Brailport Correctional Facilities consist of reproducing books for the blind and visually impaired. In a nutshell, by putting these modernized facilities within the inner cities, you create also urban renewal, surrounding small businesses, affordable housing. You institute solar paneling, energy effective. With 2.3 million people in prison and you're letting 1 million out a year, you're not letting them out effectively. So if you take half of that, 600,000, 700,000, you put them in these institutions a year before, you start gradually transitioning them back into the communities the way they need to do effectively. They go out for a couple hours each day, they go out every other weekend. If they're violent felony offenders, they be on monitors. There's a program implemented in that for child support unit. You teach convicted felons who've been away 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years in prison how to start doing things for their children or their grandchildren. So you bring them back to reality, because if you put somebody in a negative environment, which is the prison system, there's not a lot of positive things in the prison system. So if you have, let's say, for example, the stimulus package was $840 billion. You could take $500 billion and create 6 to 9 of these different facilities at every level, federal, state, and local corrections. And each facility you create and surround the small business. You're looking at job creation, 1.3 million per state, 65 million overall United States. Never been done. But you're also reinventing the areas. You're also reinventing these people. You're making a change. You're taking your prison system and you're able to market it. You take these institutions, you name each one after soldiers that gave their lives in service to this country, the men and women. So you bring something back. Part of what they did with this prison reform bill, they named it the Redemption Bill. The name of my corporation is Redemption Development Corporation, ironically. And the twist of all that is that if you can take convicted felons and you can incorporate a work setting and a corporate setting within these institutions at the same time they're working, if each one of them come out in the year and they have $10,000 to $15,000 in their pocket, they have comprehensive skills, what's the chances of that person reoffending as opposed to before? You could take right now, if 10,000 people broke the law in America, everywhere in America, you could find a jail cell to put them in with no problem. But if you had to let 10,000 people out right now, it would have to go through the court system, and it would take months to maybe years to get 10,000 people out in one shot. So if you could take what we already have in a reverse effect and publicize it and show the difference and show the job creation, you are reconditioning people, you are reconditioning communities, and you're taking it and you're creating jobs for millions of people at the same time. It's not that it can't be done, it's something that hasn't been done. It's not something that's been presented because people haven't took the time to put it together. So if you really focus and understand what it is, you'll say pretty much, wow, this sounds easy. It's not that it sounds easy, it has to be understood. So if we had this before, when they put the 840 billion stimulus package, we would still have 340 billion to play with after that. But that's not to say that the stimulus package was a bad thing. It helped save a lot of jobs. It didn't help create a lot of jobs. So if you could take now what I'm saying, $500 billion, and you give $10 billion per state, and you created urban renewal, prison reform, you're combining something that's already affecting the communities. That's not affecting it massively overall. So now if you're able to create all these facilities, you can take in each state pre-existing facilities that's old, close them, sell them, they become prime real estate. But it brings money to that state, that federal part of the federal government, that county as well. All these are things that could have been done or can be done. It just has to be effectively presented. What is an understanding that change has to come. If change wasn't evident or needed to be implemented, we wouldn't have had a prison reform bill signed. So that's saying in a nutshell, if you have the leadership of this country willing to introduce a prison reform bill, it's time to introduce an effective plan. So if you can affect jobs throughout and create jobs in every state using this system, which you already created jobs using your prison system, but you haven't created a system where you're bringing out people effectively. So with that, if you could bring out people effectively by doing something of this magnitude, you will open the door for other countries to adapt what we're doing. Those countries can adapt U.S. correctional workforce going in those countries, implementing these things. So basically, that's the key. So you're creating, by taking our prison and jail system and effectively pushing people out, at the same time, the states and the government are going to generate money off pushing these individuals out effectively. It's going to generate an income for these states and these facilities to do something effectively. It's going to give these inmates, these former inmates, the opportunity to re-integrate society effectively. There's, with these facilities are also going to be designed with what's called 3VR systems, the banking system, the facial or profile. So you're not, the critics can't say, oh, we can't just let these people out. You're already doing it. You're already letting them out. You're not letting them out effectively. If you find a way to let them out effectively, then the prison reform bill becomes a success. But without adding something to it, it's not a success because it's just a bill. But it's an opportunity to do something different. And that's what it created. It created an opportunity to do something different. And it would take an understanding of a dual mind of understanding what the change consists of. It can't be just a mind of understanding how to build and how to develop. You have to have the mind of understanding what the incarcerated mind consists of, what could be addressed. People don't understand that people that are incarcerated are damaged to a certain degree. So you have to recondition them at the same time because there's a culture shock upon being released from prison.
Well, in terms of jobs, how many jobs can be created from this?
If it's done the way that I'm saying, if the government is willing to introduce a prison reform stimulus package, you're talking like over 1 million jobs per state, 60 to 65 million U.S. jobs effectively. during the beginning, the construction phase, after the development. Then you have surrounding affordable housing, as well as small businesses. So you're taking these jails and prisons and you're going to create them in the inner cities, and you're going to create a workforce right next to them.
Would you be willing to introduce this specialized re-entry and massive employment projects to the president?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not about who's the president. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's not about black or white, Latino, Asian, or other. It's about people in self doing something that's effective, that affects everyone. So it's not about who's the president or who's not the president, whether it's president. It's who's willing to do what needs to get done to address the problem. So as far as him being president, he's the one that signed the prison reform bill. So why not introduce it to him? If it's the opportunity to present it, absolutely.
On the overall, what do you see as a problem with criminal justice reform and prison reform as a comparison between the two?
The problem that I see, criminal justice reform, people have a different understanding. They think that addressing criminal justice reform, that America is going to change the laws. They're not going to change the laws. The laws that's in place is a lot of them, they're not bad laws. They're just misused by people that represent them, or people that have money, or people that have political ties to circumvent what they are supposed to be done for. That's one of the problems. Prosecutors have an opportunity to do a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing, and they get away with it. That aspect of criminal justice reform, it needs to be addressed. But that's been an ongoing problem for decades that has to be addressed. But that problem has to be addressed as a comparison to prison reform. There is nothing that really has been addressed with prison reform because no one has created anything massive to address prison reform. Prison reform is restructuring institutions or rebuilding institutions that specifically are designed and designated to address reentry. We don't have a massive reentry in this country. We never have. So with a prison system that big, you have to start to begin to address it somewhere. If you can address prison reform on a massive level and you can help recreate, then you can start trickling down to address the criminal justice reform. Because if you start eliminating a massive amount of recidivism, then you can start more to focus on how you can effectively introduce certain laws or certain provisions within criminal justice reform, because you won't have that cesspool of a whole bunch of variety of people doing the same thing, because with the reconditioning factor, you're eliminating that. That's why you have a 3 strikes law. You have people that are repeat offenders, so you have a 3 strikes law. Then you have a 3 strikes law, you have an overcrowded prison system. You have people triple bunking in California because the prison system was so big. So in order to address that change overall, in a nutshell, in a comparison, you have to start somewhere to get to the other one. It's not going to be where both is going to be addressed at the same time, because they are being addressed. It's not being addressed where it has been effective on a larger scale. Things that have been effective been, more on a minimum scale. But in the history of this country, we have not been able to address our prison population collectively, unanimously. If you're taking what I'm introducing, and we did this in every state, then we're doing something effectively in a centralized effort that's going to implement massive change. It's going to implement massive employment. It's going to recreate. It's going to regenerate. These are things that people haven't really taken into account because nobody analyzed what the problem is. People say we should make change. There's a lot of people saying what we should do, but there's nobody doing what we should be doing because nobody has introduced something. People say let's make change and do that, but where's the plan to make the change? You got to have a plan. You have to have an architect to design a building. That's a plan.
Well, Mayor de Blasio has 10 years to play with to put together a plan. Do you have a plan? This
plan that I have would take those 5 facilities, and you could build those 5 facilities in less than a year. So in 2 years, you could have Rikers Island empty and put those facilities into effect.
So if you were given the opportunity to get this grant, Can you put it together all together? Do you have a team?
Absolutely.
Okay. And would your team be willing to work side by side with either the senators and congressmen of every state?
Without question.
Okay. How long do you think it would take per state for them to put it together?
If you had the funding, easy, you can develop the surrounding real estate, the facility, 2 years. 3 years tops, 2 years mostly. Straight construction, new construction shit wouldn't take that long. 2 years. These facilities are not luxury buildings. They're shells. Shells is just levels of floors and rooms.
Like that picture?
Absolutely. That's modern construction, new construction. So if you're building in a modernized effect, it doesn't even look like it would be a jail because it's in the city. But it's also part of the reconditioning. If you have inmates in a place where it's modern and they're coming back to society every day and it's surrounded, it's a whole new community. And one of the other things that you implement is also a part of that for veterans, you know, as well. You know, you have where there's built housing for them as well. You know, there's a lot of things that we have the opportunity to do. It's just not, someone's not pushing it to do it. No one's putting together a plan to do it. So we have a plan, you can make it work. If you didn't have a plan before and you just had a stimulus just to fund and feed, you still don't have an effective plan that's gonna stay there. So if you have something that you know that's needed, and this is greatly needed, and it's past due and it's past time. So even with the closing of Rikers Island, it's the biggest city jail in the whole world. And Rikers Island needs to, they don't need it. This is not needed. It's too big to supervise. It's been too many instances. They finally came to an understanding with probably the numerous amounts of lawsuits to small and lessen their population, and building these jails within the city. You know, the city council, the mayor, and the mayor's office, I guess, you know, introduced it where it's effective to, you know, people traveling or whatever to see their family members or court costs or transportation. But the understanding also, you have to introduce the people that you're not just putting something in their communities. If you put something within their communities that is going to enhance these communities, it's going to enhance the people that's in there, then it's going to be more susceptible. If you just drop something somewhere, people are going to rebel, people are going to challenge because they don't have an understanding completely what it is. You have to show them that there's a difference, that there's a sign of betterment. And when people start to see that and understand that, you'll see people become more receptive. And even showing the mayor or whoever it is that this is an effective plan. You know, an understanding of development is instrumental. Any developer can build, but it's what you build and how you build it.
I see over there the solar panels. How would you implement that?
When you build, you can implement solar paneling to be cost effective to cut down on the cost of energy, which also creates another market for employment. So if you build in all these facilities throughout, say, each city or each state, you have a demand for that type of material. That creates a whole nother market. So as I said previously, if you could create a successful plan in this country on how to build specialized range facilities, you open the door to build this in 100 other countries. Because other countries have an uncivilized prison population. The United States has a modernized, civilized prison population where people have rights, people have medical. In third world countries, they have people, inmates that run their prisons in some of these places. You know, a lot of it is uncivilized, and a lot of countries would like to get to where it's more civilized. But people look and frown upon. We don't want a prison population that big where you making people feel comfortable either. But you're reconditioning, so it's not comfortable just making people comfortable. It's bringing people back out effectively. The same thing with the city corrections. If you have people that's detainees, they're just sitting in jail. But if you give them something to do, the chance, even if they have to go upstate and do time, or they have to do county time, you're still showing them something different as opposed to just sitting there and having problems. So in order to implement any type of positive change, you have to implement the positive thing within what's going to make that change, not just somebody saying it.
with regards to all these jobs, would they be getting paid?
Yeah, they would be getting paid.
And how would they get paid, and then how would they funnel that funding?
Depends on what type of facility you implement. If you're dealing with Braille, Braille has countless nonprofit agencies that create books for Braille and large print. These are the agencies that will marry with the Department of Corrections. There's acts that have billions of dollars, but they can't go after money massively unless they have something to feed it. So that's where the money will come from. You know, anything that you do for the handicap, but this is you have to do it at a nonprofit margin. So minimum wage, or depending on whether it's county corrections or state corrections, you know, it might be what they call industry wages, but it's more money than what they would normally be getting if they were just incarcerated, getting a few cents a day.
So how much do they actually make a week?
It depends. I can't say what every state is different, every county is different. It depends on the county, what they consider, what their margin of pay would be. That's something that will be determined by the Department of Corrections. We can't make a predetermination on that, but people will get paid. It's different. It's not the same type of thing. You're introducing something different.
You had mentioned with regards to getting paid, would the inmates be paying? Would they be getting paid a salary, and then the child support would be taken out of there, and then would they be paid?
I didn't say child support. I said what you would create in those type of facility is a child support unit. So if they're on a salary and they take out $50 a week, that goes away for that account that's something that's directed for the child. And when you talk about state and federal facilities, these are sentence facilities. So part of that, they pay, in most workers, they pay like inmates, they take out like $100 a month for like cost of room and board.
Right.
So if you got 1,000 inmate facility, you're talking about 1.2 million the first year, 2.4 the second, 3.6 the third year. And part of that, in these states that have massive overcrowded and massive inmates, you would have probably a re-entry tax where they have a contract to come to this facility before their time is up. So at the same time, even with the outside contracts where you have the Braille, you have the computer repair, you have the asbestos, you have telecommunications, these facilities will be able to network with these different companies and businesses. So these states and federal institutions will be able to generate contracts through outside entities. So by putting these inmates to work for outside businesses, the states generate an income off of pushing these inmates out, as opposed to just pushing them out with nothing.
So it's more or less like a recycling system? And
I wouldn't call it recycling, it's a reconditioning.
or reconditioning?
When you say recycling, it's like we're not taking cans of soap
No,
and
when I said
bottles.
recycling, I really meant arresting the person, training them, preparing them, and putting them back into society so that they don't come back into the jail system.
Correct.
And by the same token, the state facility makes money
Yes, they would.
and it regenerates money.
Right.
And that's in terms, those are the terms that I'm saying recycling. Because
Correct.
though there'll be a number of different people coming in and leaving, but the same process is gonna go ongoing, so the money never stops.
Right.
If they
It
do
keeps
it
going.
the way you're putting it out.
Exactly.
So if you're given an opportunity tomorrow and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, calls you, or the senators, or the Congress, would you make yourself available?
Of course I want myself available. That's part of the introducing is to make an understanding. It's not just making a statement, it's something that's factual that can create massive change in more than one area. And by, like I said, by the signing of that bill, it opened the door for somebody to present something. So with the senators and the congressional representatives that authored that bill, we would have to applaud them because it's something that's been way overdue. It's something that is greatly needed. And part of it, some people will criticize that it was only done to address the federal prison overcrowding or pushing inmates out at a federal level and using the GPS system and all that. So well, that's not enough. You know, it's not that it's not enough, it's a start. So with that start, it also says it's enabling the states, if you read the bill, to come up with something effective. So if you come up with something effective, then the government has the opportunity to provide the funding to create something. So now if somebody's, it doesn't matter who it's coming from, it matters how you're gonna get it done. So to answer the question that you're saying, absolutely, if I was asked to, by the president or the mayor or any elected official, I would answer to it.
And you have that plan and you know it like the back of your hand.
I started this plan 15 years ago. And it's now that there's a prison reform bill. And when I started it, I didn't have a clue that there would be a prison reform bill ever introduced. It's just that I know it was something that was needed and needed to be done. You know, I'm a recipient of the prison system. I've spent several years incarcerated. You know, I've been into politics, I've been into development, I've been into construction. The areas that need to be addressed, I've already been in these areas, so I have a clearer understanding or vision to see something that could help implement change. It doesn't mean that it's the final answer, it doesn't mean that it's the only answer. It means that it's something that somebody else doesn't have that needs to get done. So to every beginning, there's a start. So we have to start somewhere. So if they signed the prison reform bill, then that's a start.
This interview went well, and I'm hoping that Donald Trump takes a closer look at this video and takes an interest to at least invite you to come and present your plan, because from what I saw, you have 2 booklets that can fully start it tomorrow if they were to invite you and put it into motion. If you are asked to come over to him, do you have someone that you want to direct them to before?
No, not necessarily. You know, I don't get into the criticism of any elected officials, but you know, as President Trump is also has a background in development. You know, he's well versed on the development aspect. So that with that understanding as a president, and also signing the prison reform bill, he has a clearer vision as opposed to people that's even sitting in office because of an understanding of development. This is still development. If you're reintroducing something, it still works within the confines of development. Redeveloping your prison system, redevelop urban renewal. So it all works hand in hand, collectively, you know. So no, I don't need anyone to direct me, you know, as far as that. I have my team of individuals with background in construction. I have a team of individuals with backgrounds of incarceration and understanding. And even the program, when I first was in this program in Eastern Correctional Facility, that program was a program that was created in a state facility from a handful of inmates that came from Rikers Island. So the program in itself that's in New York State actually came from city corrections. It was birthed there. They just let it fall apart. So it was something that they had their hands on before the state. And in 23 other states, they have real programs within the prison system, but nothing with reentry. So there's a difference, reentry as far as just incarceration. Reentry is preparing people before they get out. So that's the big difference. That's the key. So if you're re-entering people into society, wouldn't you want to re-enter them with the work mode? Wouldn't you want them to have money in their pockets? Wouldn't you want them to have direction? Wouldn't you have people guiding them how to have the comprehensive skills to get employed? So even with all that, there's also a part of this that enhances parole. There's a unit that comes with that works directly with the Department of Corrections as far as when these individuals go back out to society. So it's a great deal of information. I'm not going to sit here and give all the information, but it's something that most people will be, oh wow, what took so long to think about something like this? Well, it took time. It wasn't something that was done overnight. It's years of work. It was well prepared, and it's something that needs to be done, and it's something that needs to be introduced.
So, Mr. Skinner, I would like to say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For giving us the insight and the comparison between criminal justice reform and prison reform. And this is actually the first time that I've actually heard in full details what can actually happen, how could it happen, or rather be broken down to make it happen. And I think that you would be the best person that our government or our elected officials should take the time to come and address their concerns or how they can be part of the plan to make it happen. I would like to say that I will make it my business to take the calls for you, if you don't mind,
No problem.
so that they can get in contact with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I would like to say thank you so much for this interview, and I can't wait until we start speaking with other people and other questions so that they can see in depth your plan can be visualized and be put into motion and action.
Thank you.
I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man, Your Honor.
Rhetoric with the mass incarceration needs to stop, and we need to come up with a solution on how to, render justice for those that's poor.